The Proteas and Bafana Bafana have had a tough time in the last week. They are two of South Africa's elite national teams who are having a tough time emulating the achievements of the Springboks. Now, for more on this, we're joined by veteran journalist Neil Manthorp, who has been following the sporting story of South Africa for decades now. Neil, a very good afternoon, and thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you for having me.
Let's start right there. I mean, is there pressure for the Proteas and Bafana Bafana and maybe other sporting codes that are participating at international level to emulate the achievements of the Springboks?
Yeah, they are. The cricketers have spoken about it for decades now, for generations, about emulating the Springboks, about trying to win their first World Cup. And although the Springboks provide a magnificent example for them to follow, they also, by the fact that they are back-to-back World Cup winners, they also provide a very, very high benchmark, which adds pressure, doesn't it? I mean, the cricketers have been under pressure for 30 years now to try and win a World Cup. And there's no doubt that it plays on their minds, absolutely no doubt whatsoever. And as much as the young players might say that it doesn't affect them, and that that they were many of them were toddlers that hadn't been born when South Africa's World Cup woes really began in 1999. But it does play on their minds, and I think all of the players have said, and head coach Rob Walter said, we just have to win one. Once we win one, then we might go on to become multiple winners like the Springboks.
I mean, the Proteas came very close this time around, and you can even take it as far as Bafana Bafana coming close, finishing third in the Africa Cup of Nations. Are we seeing the tide turning, or again, are we being a little bit too hard on the Proteas, calling them chokers, on Bafana Bafana, calling them a bunch of losers?
You know, there's a difference between a choke and a strangle. I mean, I think that a choke is self-inflicted when the pressure of the occasion becomes too much. But a strangle, and these are emotive terms, but you know, the Springbok, I think the Proteas will look back at this World Cup campaign, and they imposed a strangle on two teams in run chases, lesser opponents, albeit Bangladesh and Nepal, when they seemed set to lose the game. They applied the pressure, they applied the stranglehold, and those two teams choked. And that's what India did to South Africa. People will say they needed 30 runs off 30 balls with Miller and Klaasen at the wicket, two of the best finishers in the world. But credit to India, you know, they applied the strangle, and South Africa choked, but it wasn't of their own volition. The Indians were better in a pressure situation.
I mean, can we say the same thing, Neil, as far as individual sports? We've got the Olympics coming up now, and we've seen what the 4x100 did, dropping the baton twice. Akani Simbine always close. You know, since the days of Caster Semenya, we haven't really had somebody that we can say that dead certain that will get us a gold medal. Do you think the same pressure applies to individuals, Olympic sports?
You know, I think it comes down to preparation and finance, to be honest, and identifying talent at an early age, nurturing that talent, making them believe that they are supported. The Springboks have this, they call the PONI system, PONI, players of national interest. And young players are identified as young as 13 and are supported through their education. They've been identified as extreme talents very early on. I think cricket's problem on a wider scale, big picture scenario, is that they try to spread their resources, limited resources, too far and wide. They try to make, and it's laudable to try and make the game of cricket accessible to everybody in the country, and that's good. But I think that there is too much money spent too widely, and I think that long term, as I say, big picture, that money could be more wisely spent on a better talent identification program, and then support. I don't think that the country can afford financially, well, I know they can't afford to support 15 professional franchises or provinces. And I think that, there needs to be some short term. South Africa will win a World Cup. They have to. There's too much talent. But I think that there should be a restructure in the big picture.
The role that we play as journalists, as supporters, as fans, how much of a role do we play in sometimes the unfair criticism that we give towards this sporting coach, towards the Proteas when they fail, towards Bafana Bafana when they come third? I mean, even the whole question of unity in South Africa, one would argue that we only talk about it when we talk about the Springboks, but when it's Bafana, it's their team. When it's Proteas, it's their team, and so on. There's never really that much of unity when it comes to other sports, except for the Springboks and rugby.
Well, you know, a lot of that comes from winning. It's much easier to be supportive of a team that wins, isn't it? And I do think that the media have a responsibility for sure, but I don't think that we should be cheerleaders. I don't think that helps. I think, you know, honest reporting is very important, but I think exposure is also really important. And, you know, the fact that Cricket South Africa hasn't been able to get Proteas matches until the final on free-to-air television plays a massive role. Role models are critical to young people with ambitions who want to play a sport, and cricket needs to be on free-to-air television, and it's a travesty that it isn't. I mean, there are all sorts of reasons, business reasons, financial reasons, but you know, your job as an administrator is to make it work, make it happen. Don't give us the excuses. Make it happen. Children who dream of emulating their sports heroes need to see them on television. If they can't see them live, they need to see them. And you know, there wasn't a single journalist at the T20 World Cup from South Africa. I managed to get to New York out of my own pocket, but that was only the first part. And I think that, as you say, the role of the media and exposure in television is, I think, vital, big picture.
Neil, I'm not sure if you are able to answer this one, but just as we part, your take on the changes in the sports ministry, Gayton McKenzie taking over as Minister of Sport?
Hopefully we'll run out of time before I can give you my full answer. Can I just say I'm not convinced and I'm confused?
Okay, let's leave it at that. Neil Manthorp, thank you so much.